Section 9 of Dear Enemy by Jean Webster. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Betsy Bush, in Marquette, Michigan, October 2007. Section 9 of Dear Enemy by Jean Webster. Dear Judy, in my letter of yesterday to Jervis I forgot it, Punch's word, to convey to you our thanks for 3 tin bathtubs. The sky blue tub with puppies on the side adds a particularly bright note to the nursery. I do love presents for the babies that are too big to be swallowed. You will be pleased to hear that our manual training is well under way. The carpenter benches are being installed in the old primary room, and until our schoolhouse gets its new addition, our primary class is meeting on the front porch, in accordance with Miss Matthews' able suggestion. The girls' sewing classes are also in progress. A circle of benches under the copper beech tree accommodates the hand sewers, while the big girls take turns at our 3 machines. Just as soon as they gain some proficiency, we will begin the glorious work of redressing the institution. I know you think I'm slow, but it's really a task to accomplish 180 new frocks. And the girls will appreciate them so much more if they do the work themselves. I may also report that our hygiene system has risen to a high level. Dr. McCrae has introduced morning and evening exercises and a glass of milk and a game of tag in the middle of school hours. He has instituted a physiology class, and has separated the children into small groups, so that they may come to his house, where he has a mannequin that comes apart and shows all its messy insides. They can now rattle off scientific truths about their little digestions as fluently as Mother Goose rhymes. We are really becoming too intelligent for recognition. You would never guess that we were orphans to hear us talk. We are quite like Boston children. 2 p.m. Oh, Judy, such a calamity! Do you remember several weeks ago I told you about placing out a nice little girl in a nice family home, where I hoped she would be adopted? It was a kind Christian family living in a pleasant country village. The foster father a deacon in the church. Hattie was a sweet, obedient, housewifely little body, and it looked as though we had exactly fitted them to each other. My dear, she was returned this morning for stealing. Scandal piled on scandal. She had stolen a communion cup from church. Between her sobs and their accusations it took me half an hour to gather the truth. It seems that the church they attend is very modern and hygienic, like our doctor, and has introduced individual communion cups. Poor little Hattie had never heard of communion in her life. In fact, she wasn't very used to church, Sunday school having always sufficed for her simple religious needs. But in her new home she attended both, and one day, to her pleased surprise, they served refreshments, but they skipped her. She made no comment, however. She is used to being skipped. But as they were starting home she saw that the little silver cup had been casually left in the seat, and supposing that it was a souvenir that you could take if you wished, she put it into her pocket. It came to light 2 days later as the most treasured ornament of her doll's house. It seems that Hattie long ago saw a set of doll's dishes in a toy shop window, and has ever since dreamed of possessing a set of her own. The communion cup was not quite the same, but it answered. Now, if our family had only had a little less religion and a little more sense, they would have returned the cup perfectly unharmed, and have marched Hattie to the nearest toy shop and bought her some dishes. But instead they bundled the child and her belongings into the first train they could catch, and shoved her in at our front door, proclaiming loudly that she was a thief. I am pleased to say that I gave that indignant deacon and his wife such a thorough scolding as I am sure they have never listened to from the pulpit. I borrowed some vigorous bits from Sandy's vocabulary and sent them home quite humbled. As for poor little Hattie, here she is back again, after going out with such high hopes. It has an awfully bad morale effect on a child to be returned to the asylum in disgrace, especially when she wasn't aware of committing a crime. It gives her a feeling that the world is full of unknown pitfalls, and makes her afraid to take a step. I must bend all my energies now toward finding another set of parents for her, and ones that haven't grown so old and settled and good that they have entirely forgotten their own childhood. Sunday. I forgot to tell you that our new farmer is here, Turnfelt by name, and his wife is a love, yellow hair and dimples. If she were an orphan I could place her in a minute. We can't let her go to waste. I have a beautiful plan of building an addition to the farmer's cottage and establishing under her comfortable care a sort of brooding house where we can place our new little chicks, to make sure they haven't anything contagious, and to eliminate as much profanity as possible before turning them loose among our other perfect chicks. How does that strike you? It is very necessary in an institution as full of noise and movement and stir as this, to have some isolated spot where we can put cases needing individual attention. Some of our children have inherited nerves, and a period of quiet contemplation is indicated. Isn't my vocabulary professional and scientific? Daily intercourse with Dr. Robin McCrae is extremely educational. Since Turnfelt came, you should see our pigs. They are so clean and pink and unnatural that they don't recognize one another any more as they pass. Our potato field is also unrecognizable. It has been divided with string and pegs into as many squares as a checkered board, and every child has staked out a claim. Seed catalogues form our only reading matter. Noah has just returned from a trip to the village for the Sunday papers to amuse his leisure. Noah is a very cultivated person. He not only reads perfectly, but he wears tortoise-shell-rimmed spectacles while he does it. He also brought from the post office a letter from you, written Friday night. I am pained to note that you do not care for Gosta Berling, and that Jervis doesn't. The only comment I can make is, what a shocking lack of literary taste in the Pendleton family. Dr. McCrae has another doctor visiting him, a very melancholy gentleman who is at the head of a private psychopathic institution and thinks there's no good in life. But I suppose this pessimistic view is natural if you eat 3 meals a day with a tableful of melancholics. He goes up and down the world looking for signs of degeneracy, and finds them everywhere. I expected, after half an hour's conversation, that he would ask to look down my throat to see if I had a cleft palate. Sandy's taste in friends seems to resemble his taste in literature. Gracious, this is a letter. Goodbye, Sally. Thursday, May 2. Dear Judy, such a bewildering whirl of events. The JGH is breathless. Incidentally, I am on the way toward solving my problem of what to do with the children while the carpenters and plumbers and masons are here, or rather my precious brother has solved it for me. This afternoon I went over my linen supply and made the shocking discovery that we have only sheets enough to change the children's beds every 2 weeks, which, it appears, is our shiftless custom. While I was still in the midst of my household gear, with a bunch of keys at my girdle, looking like the chatelaine of a medieval chateau, who should be ushered in but Jimmy? Being extremely occupied, I dropped a slanting kiss on his nose and sent him off to look over the place in charge of my 2 oldest urchins. They collected 6 friends and organized a baseball game. Jimmy came back blown, but enthusiastic, and consented to prolong his visit over the weekend, though after the dinner I gave him he has decided to take his future meals at the hotel. As we sat with our coffee before the fire, I confided to him my anxiety as to what should be done with the chicks while their new brooder is building. You know Jimmy. In 1/2 a minute his plan was formulated. Build an Adirondack camp on that little plateau up by the wood lot. You can make 3 open shacks, each holding 8 bunks, and move the 24 oldest boys out there for the summer. It won't cost 2 cents. Yes, I objected, but it will cost more than 2 cents to engage a man to look after them. Perfectly easy, said Jimmy grandly. I'll find you a college fellow who will be glad to come during the vacation for his board and a mere pittance. Only you'll have to set up more filling board than you gave me tonight. Dr. McCrae dropped in about 9 o'clock after visiting the hospital ward. We've got 3 cases of whooping cough, but all isolated and no more coming. How those 3 got in is a mystery. It seems there is a little bird that brings whooping cough to orphan asylums. Jimmy fell upon him for backing in his camp scheme, and the doctor gave it enthusiastically. They seized pencil and paper and drew up plans, and before the evening was over the last nail was hammered. Nothing would satisfy those two men but